November 4th, 2025. What started as a completely routine cargo flight ended in a fiery disaster just seconds after takeoff. The fallout was immediate, but the search for what went wrong would uncover a hidden danger lurking deep inside the aircraft. Today, we're going to unpack the official NTSB investigation into UPS Flight 2976.
And this is it. These are the final chilling moments of the flight. And this is what airport surveillance caught. In just a handful of frames, you see a normal takeoff turn into an absolute catastrophe. The left engine literally tears itself away from the wing, erupting in a massive fireball as the plane desperately tries to climb.
And the cost? It was just devastating. 14 people lost their lives. That includes the 3 experienced crew members who were on the plane, and tragically, 11 people on the ground who were just in the wrong place at the very wrong time.
So how on earth did this happen? To figure that out, we have to go right back to that day and piece together the facts of the crash itself.
The flight data recorders tell us that the huge MD-11 freighter never got more than about 30 feet off the ground. It was already engulfed in flames, critically damaged, and it just barely cleared the blast fence at the end of the runway before coming down in an industrial area right next to the airport. The impact and the fire that followed just carved this path of destruction, nearly 3,000 feet long. The scene was absolutely devastating, but even as the first responders were arriving, the hunt for the cause was already kicking off.
All right, so now let's get into the investigation and see how the National Transportation Safety Board, the NTSB, started to put the pieces of this incredibly complex puzzle together. You know, for the NTSB investigators arriving on the scene, there was one massive question that overshadowed everything else. How does a multi-ton jet engine completely separate from an aircraft's wing during takeoff? You know the first big clue? The thing that really cracked this case open? It wasn't found in the main wreckage. Investigators found the engine that had separated, the pylon that connected it, and other key parts right there on the runway. And that was it. That was the definitive proof that this failure happened during takeoff, not because of the crash. And with that discovery, the NTSB could now laser focus on the specific piece of hardware that was responsible, a single critical connection point.
Okay, so this diagram from the NTSB's own report shows us exactly how the engine pylon hooks up to the wing. You can see there are a few connection points, but investigators quickly honed in on this one right here, the pylon aft mount. So what is this thing, and why is it so incredibly important?
Well, put simply, the pylon is the vital link that holds that massive engine in place. It's engineered to handle just unbelievable forces in every direction, from the engine's raw thrust pushing forward to the violent shaking from turbulence. If that pylon fails, it's game over. And wow, when you see it side by side like this, the evidence is it's brutal. On the left, that's how the aft mount is supposed to look. And on the right, that's the shattered piece they pulled off the runway. It's a complete catastrophic structural failure. So, seeing the broken part was one thing, but understanding why it broke? Well, for that, investigators had to look way, way closer, all the way down to the microscopic level. I mean, that was the key question, right? How does a solid chunk of metal built to withstand all those forces just disintegrate? Well, the NTSB's materials lab came back with a chilling answer. This failure wasn't sudden at all. It was a disaster that had been growing completely unseen for a very, very long time.
And here is the smoking gun, straight from the NTSB's report. When the lab guys put the fractured metal under a microscope, they found clear evidence of pre-existing fatigue cracks. This part had been slowly, silently failing long before that final flight.
If you're not familiar with metal fatigue, it's basically a hidden killer in aviation. Think about bending a paperclip back and forth. For a while, it seems perfectly fine, right? But you're actually creating tiny, microscopic cracks. And then, eventually, with no warning, it just snaps. That's exactly what happened here, just on a terrifyingly massive scale. So, the discovery of these fatigue cracks immediately opened up a brand new and deeply unsettling question. If the part was failing, why in the world wasn't it caught during routine maintenance? So investigators pulled the plane's maintenance records, and what they found was a huge shock. The plane was totally up to date on its regular visual checks and things like that. But see this line here? The special detailed inspection? The very inspection designed to find these exact kinds of cracks? It wasn't due yet, not even close. Yeah, you're reading that right. The aircraft could have flown for almost 8,000 more takeoffs and landings before that critical inspection was even required. And this This might just be the most unsettling part of this entire investigation. This wasn't a case of missed maintenance. The airline was following the rules. The problem, it seems, was with the rules themselves.
This terrifying realization that a fatal flaw could exist on a plane that was fully compliant with its maintenance schedule, well, that prompted immediate and drastic action from regulators.
Recognizing the danger, UPS, to their credit, proactively grounded their entire MD-11 fleet before anyone even told them to. The FAA then quickly followed suit, issuing an emergency directive that grounded all MD-11s, and then they expanded it to include the older but very similar DC-10s. The risk of another failure was just too high.
And this historical parallel really explains why they moved so fast. The crash of UPS 2976 was a chilling echo of one of the most infamous disasters in U.S. aviation history, the 1979 crash of American Airlines Flight 191. In both crashes, the left engine and pylon separated on takeoff. Now, the root causes ended up being different, but the catastrophic result was identical.
And all of this leaves us with the critical question that the NTSB, the FAA, and airlines all over the world now have to confront. The lessons from Flight 2976 were absolutely written in tragedy, but they highlight a challenge that's only going to get bigger as the global fleet of aircraft keeps getting older. How do we find the flaws that we don't even know we should be looking for?